Warwick, we just finished up talking with Dr. Erica Harris, which is always fascinating conversation. And the things that she said, what she went through, same stuff that you've gone through emotionally, as we say, not her story completely different than yours, lots of physical crucibles, but the emotions, they rang true, right? What was your takeaway from our talk with Dr. Harris?
Gosh, everything she went through from, leukemia, lung replacement stem cell. I mean, just years of challenges. I guess she talks about 11 bonus years.
Right.
Certainly her spirit, her optimism, her, not letting this defeat her. But probably one of the biggest things is she said is don't kind of stuff the emotions. A
Right.
lot of us, I think, as I mentioned in the podcast, men in terms of society are taught stuff it, be a man, don't cry, all that kind of thing. But a lot of people, men or women, have this attitude that this false narrative that being strong means that you don't feel the pain, don't feel your feelings. And what she really said is that's a myth. And so she felt the depth of the pain, the disappointment, the point at which in the podcast she looks out the window of a hospital room somewhere 8 weeks in or so with the leukemia diagnosis, and sees the nanny that they'd hired drive her kids to wherever they were going, to sports or to back home, and there's just sense of loss and grief, thinking, hey, as a mom, that's my job. That's what she was
Right.
thinking. So I love the fact that she just dwelt on the fact that you've got to feel your feelings. And in my own way, countercultural, as I mentioned on the podcast, I've always tried to feel my feelings, not stuff them, because I can't deal with them, process them, and to find a way to overcome them
Right.
unless I've felt them. So if I feel sad, angry, I've got to know, okay, why, what's going on? I'm not going to stuff it. I've got to understand it. So yeah, that sense of not stuffing your feelings, it's so, so helpful.
It was interesting when she said that. What I thought of was our guest Karen Austin, who talked about putting the emotions in the basement, and all they do is like the grief in the basement, and all it does is lift weights and get stronger. If you don't get after your emotions, if you don't let them come through in whatever way they want to come through, they're going to come through in a negative way, in a stronger way, perhaps in a stronger negative way someday. Which that really made an impact on me. Also, what she said, and I want to ask you this question because she said early on, she talked about she wasn't being positive. She was feeling bad after her cancer diagnosis because she wasn't being positive, and she felt like she had to be plucky going through this terrible diagnosis of leukemia and being given 2 months to live, and just all the hits she kept taking, and she wasn't feeling positive, and that need to feel positive sort of overcame her until she realized she could release it. It made me think immediately. I wrote a note. When you went through your crucible with the family media company, did you feel the need in its aftermath to feel right, to be positive? Did you put any of that weight on yourself? I got to be positive through this for the family, for my kids, for whatever.
No, really, actually.
No, that's good. I mean, that's good
I,
because
no, I didn't think to myself in the early 90s when my kids were young, oh, I got to be positive. I mean, obviously, life goes on. You change your kids. I was saying off air to Erica, in Australia, we don't call them diapers, we call them nappies. So I don't know. It's a bit bilingual in our household. I think we call them nappies or something. I really can't remember. But, stuff of life, you got to change them and, rock them to sleep. And that's just part of life, and, helps, keep joyful in those small moments. But no, I never really felt this sense of, I got to be positive. And I just somehow, I wasn't in a particularly good place, but I just somehow needed to feel what I felt and, I don't know, process it. I don't know, that probably would have been much better, quicker ways to process. And yeah, it would have been helpful to have somebody say it's okay to feel your feelings. But no, I never really felt that pressure. You got to be positive. Not really. I
yeah.
guess I had too much pain and grief to think about the
No.
positive.
Well, and you got to a point where you could express what she called genuine positivity. And she talked about the battle
Right.
between toxic positivity, as she called it, and a genuine positivity. And that's one of the things I encourage listeners to go, watch the clips of this show, with Dr. Erica Harris, or watch the YouTube version, because you'll see a lot of genuine positivity in her. From, you mentioned at work before, I think it might have been before we got on here, maybe it wasn't, that her background was so positive and airy that she had in her setup, and it wasn't a virtual background, it was really the background of her room. As she was telling these really hard stories about her cancer and her lung transplant and her divorce, there was a lilt in her spirit, because, as she put it, right, almost dying taught her how to live. And those things are blessings that she went through. Those things are blessings. And I think she demonstrated, you can see it in the video, folks, the genuine positivity, right, Warwick?
Absolutely.